No stems, no seeds that you don't need. Acapulco Gold is
badass weed.
Cut. How'd that sound to you?
Hey man, that was far out, man.
Hi everybody, it is Ayam, Sirias. I'm back again. Now that track you just heard, or that part of a track, is from an old Cheech and Chong album, I think released back in the 70s, and the track is titled Acapulco Gold. Now when I sat down to make this video, I started thinking back to when I was a kid and all the vinyl my dad had, and me and my brother, we must have been, 7 or 8 years old, and we used to go through his records and just put them on the player and listen to them and dance around and have fun. But for some reason, this particular track came to my mind right when I went to make this video. And every time we would put the album on, and every time we'd put it directly to that track, Acapulco Gold, and we'd listen to no stems, no seeds that you don't need, and we'd laugh and jump around, and then we'd take the needle, put it back, and listen to it again and again and again. And unfortunately, we basically destroyed that record, me and my brother. We scratched it into oblivion. We did that with all his albums. But I'm bringing this up as a segue into my talking point here, talking about broken records. And the analogy I want to make is that I see this sort of broken record happening between the conversations of feminists and their opposition. There's this scratch in the groove between us and them. MGTOW, MRA, PUA, whatever, anti-feminist, the manosphere. And there's this scratch in the groove. There's this broken record, this repetition that I keep seeing happening over and over and over again. But I think most of you are probably familiar, at least from the feminist side, with, that sickly repetition of the feminist talking points and how they repeat themselves over and over again. And it's this awkward, staggered rhythm. And it's not at all pleasing to the ears. Now, also, I remember when I was a kid, my parents would put an album on in the other room, and they'd be maybe washing the dishes or doing something somewhere else. If they heard the needle hit a scratch in the groove and start skipping, they'd drop whatever they were doing, run to the record player, and then fix the needle, and hoping that the next time it came around, it wouldn't meet that scratch again and skip. Everybody here knows how the feminists like to repeat their arguments again and again and again, despite what us, the opposition, tell them. To take the analogy further, if the conversation is the record, is the vinyl, then it's the feminists that scratched it up. They're the children jumping around listening to the song, basically not mature enough to understand how you have to handle it quite delicately, a piece of vinyl. You can't just toss it around. And the manosphere, us, are the parents running into the room every time that scratch comes, that scratch in the groove comes up, running into the room to stop it and fix it, and just hope it doesn't come back again. But unfortunately, I think we all know that in this day and age, it always does. The record is broken, and every time it comes around, it hits that scratch in the groove, and it skips, and it skips, and it skips, and it skips, and it skips. And of course, we, like good manosphere people, jump at the chance to correct the needle. Now, I want to give you an example of what the feminists do in regards to my analogy. And if you look at any feminist pages on the web, you'll notice how they are always recycling their articles and memes. And I'm not talking about, the same content under another heading. I'm talking about a complete copy and paste, including headlines of articles or memes they've posted months before. And this is particularly obvious on Facebook. A couple of the groups, Women's Right News and Everyday Feminism, they come to mind. Just check them out. Pay attention. They will recycle and rehash the same articles again and again and again. And their fans will continue to like them and post on them. It's like a nightmare deja vu all over again. A Twilight Zone episode. It's the Devil's Broken Vinyl Collection, wherein the needle skips
for eternity.
It's as if they only have this small finite wheelbarrow full of shit to shovel from, so they must always continue to recycle it. Because none of these women can ever dream up anything new. Maybe we should get them a composting toilet for International Women's Day, so they can take their shit and eat it too. Now, what I mentioned above is also true, not just with copy and pasting articles, but also with popular feminist talking points, such as
wage gap, patriarchy, rape culture, skip, rape culture, skip, rape culture, skip.
And it's this insane cycle of them repeating these debunked conspiracies. But allow me to be more specific, because recently the femtards had an uproar and they all wailed in unison like harpies at the new variant cover of an up-and-coming Batgirl comic by DC Comics. Now you can see it here on the screen. I'll put it up. And take a good look at it. Look right into the eyes of that woman, the Batwoman, the Batgirl. Does it not scream rape and male domination? Guess what? It wasn't months ago that they said the same thing about Spider-Woman's ass. Correct? I mean, this is the scratch in the groove that causes the needle to skip. It's the broken record. But what is even more peculiar is the reaction to the skip. Every time the needle of feminist rhetoric crosses the scratch in the groove, the manosphere responds accordingly by running to set the needle straight with 35 RPMs of predictable retort. And this is all like an unimaginable codependent relationship inside the movie Groundhog's Day. Now, I've been a MGTOW for over 2 years, and for lack of a better term, I swallowed the red pill over 3 years ago. I was a late bloomer considering my age. But in all honesty, since I started or swallowed, nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. The needle continues to skip across the worn vinyl, and the parents respond. When was the last time you saw a prominent feminist mouthpiece have an epiphany and say,
You know what? You're right. The wage gap isn't real. You know what? We don't actually live in a rape culture.
And while you consider that, please consider how long feminism has been around in the West and how long it has also been opposed. Now, I know most of you will respond by saying,
But we don't butt heads with feminists just to change feminist minds. We do it to change the minds of those who stand in the middle, on the precipice of the vinyl's grooves. You know, the little feminists.
And we do it for men. Come on, essay. You may win over the minds of your average street thug level feminist, but it never has and never will happen among the upper echelon. And further, any feminist, whether male or female, that subscribes to this chaotic monarchy of deadly needles to the vinyl, they'll never fully convert. They'll never fully convert. They'll always have one leg firmly planted, but quivering in the kiddie pool. It's just like a little boy or a little girl trying to make the transition from the kiddie pool to the adult pool. And the way that they're handled by the mind of the feminists, they can never do it. They'll always be straddling the edge. Because feminism and gynocentrism has absolute control over our education system, from elementary school to university. Now, to be fair, let's do the same thing for the MRAs and anti-feminists. So what we would say is this: when was the last time you saw a prominent MRA or anti-feminist say,
Hey, you know what? The feminists are actually right after all. We should all become feminists.
It sounds kind of funny. I've recently come across memes on Facebook that say this very thing. And it was from some anti-feminist page, I don't remember now. Summarizing, it basically said this: Hey feminists, try to explain why there's so many feminists coming over to the MRM, but there's no MRM coming over to feminism. This is total bullshit. It's total needle reaction. It's total skipping the groove reaction. It's called broken record reaction. This is what they're doing. There's no justification for this. There's no evidence for this. But apparently their ideology is better than the feminists. So of course it's going to happen that way. But considering that, why don't we do a little experiment? Anyone listening to this now, if you were originally a feminist at some point in your life, in the past, whether male or female, and then you turned to the other side, that is, to become an MRA or MRM or some other part of the manosphere, please make a comment below. And further, if you know someone who's done the same thing, maybe not yourself, please tell their story or convince them to tell their story in the comments below. And that also goes for any feminists listening. So let's hear the opposite. But regardless, MRAs and anti-feminists, in regard to their so-called approach to reforming gender relations, I think I could sum it up like this, in this nice little metaphor. It's like continuously banging your head against a brick wall with the hope that someone, somewhere, might notice and decide that what you are doing is a very bad idea. Now, does anyone listening now honestly believe that the Anita Sarsqueezians of the world will one day come to their apathetic senses? You know, the reason all of this happens is because, like I said, broken record, a scratch in the groove, a perpetual echo chamber machine. All of these things make profit. It makes money, for God's sake. A lot of these prominent feminists like Sarsqueezian, they've almost become millionaires off their victim narrative and echo chambers. You see, every time the needle comes down and comes around for the skip in your vinyl, those people hear this large cha-ching sound as their bank accounts get bigger. This is why sites like WRN, Women's Rights News, and Everyday Feminist, they continue to recycle the same bullshit articles every few months. Because each time they do it, it's 10,000 more clicks and 10,000 more likes. And the same goes for the popular MRA and anti-feminist pages and sites. You see, every time a little gopher Sarsqueezian pops her little gopher head out of the ground with her mouth open, the needle comes down, and what happens? You have your MRA sitting up there on a branch, perched like an owl, waiting with bated breath to swoop down and retort and respond as loud as possible, just so they can stay on the heels of the next 10,000 clicks and likes that these feminists dominate. Now, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm going to explain it to you. These manosphere men, these feminists, anti-feminists, these MRAs, these PUAs, what they do is they still try to protect women. When a woman says something ridiculous, they feel it is their duty to swoop in and correct them because they are still living in a time when that needed to be done, and deep down inside their DNA, they wish it still existed. You see, MGTOW walks away. We have no responsibility over those women. Whatever they say does not affect us. We do not need to swoop. We do not need to dodge. We do not need to pay attention. But if we choose to, we can. But when it comes to the popular MRA, MRM, PUA, anti-feminist movement in the male perspective, the only reason why this narrative continues, the only reason why the record continues to skip is because they perceive themselves as the adult that must correct the child's mistake. They never think about repairing the record. They never think about repairing the LP. They never think about throwing the LP out altogether and getting a new one. No, their ears are attuned to hear and to listen for that skip in the analog, that skip in the vinyl. And then they'll react. MRA, MRM, anti-feminist PUAs, they're reactionaries. They react to what women do. They are still under the control of women's power, but they'll never admit it. And they will say that the reason they fight feminism is to help men. I don't know, brothers. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Quit banging your head against a wall and expecting men to look at you and go, hey, that's a bad idea. You know what men do? Do you know what men that understand these concepts do when they see you banging your head against the wall or swooping down from a branch just to protect the horrible ideas of females who've followed the ideology of feminism? You know what we do? We look at you, we shake our head, and we say, why are you being such an idiot? Anyway, good night, brothers. I'll see you again soon. I am Sirias. Hopefully I've offended no one, but most likely I have. Take care. Be well. Good night.
Yeah, man, like I had a thing to do, you know, where you talk, man, where the cat talks. I got a thing to say, man. I was going to say it, but I forgot it, man.
You want to do it again?
Yeah, man, let's do it again.
Okay, all right.
Hold it, give me a joint, man. Give me another joint.
Here you are.
Okay, far out, man. Okay, we'll get it right this time,
Yeah,
man.
okay. All right, let's try it again, huh?
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Acapulco Gold Filters, take 403.
Now, this some bad weed.